Hey guys, it's me Meteor, and welcome to another edition of What is Kirby Canon? This time we'll be talking about Void Termina. Void Termina is the being that Highness and the Mage Sisters were trying to revive since the very beginning of the game. This being, of course, was originally sealed away by 4 heroes of yore, and for good reason. I mean, just take a look at what even one heart is capable of. Not only can they completely corrupt somebody, they could also give them powers way beyond what they normally had. Add in the fact that each heart seems to be sentient, and you have a huge problem. And yet, none of those factors stop them from bringing back a being comprised of hundreds of these. In fact, Highness was so invested, he gave the rest of his power and that of the generals just to complete the thing. Overall, their plan was a success, giving birth to one of the most powerful beings Kirby has ever seen. Many people believe Void Termina to be another form of dark matter, and it's easy to see why. For one, during his rant, Highness mentions being masters of a matter most dark. On top of that, there are so many references in the battle itself to dark matter, it's not even funny. We got the ground from Darkstar, the various faces of Void Soul, and even Zero's boss Butch background in the splash screen. There's so many references, it's a wonder why Hal just doesn't make a splash screen for Void Termina that says, "Yes, it's dark matter, K thanks, bye." Well, perhaps the answer isn't quite as cut and dry as that. We can get a clue as to what Void Termina truly is by looking at the description for the second phase in Soul Melter EX. Besides telling us that Void exists in all dimensions, the English version doesn't really tell us much. However, originally discovered by Falco Lau on Discord, and then confirmed by Teo EXE, there is a huge piece of information in the Japanese version that was removed when it was translated. It states, dreams, darkness, soul, heart. All chaos and possibilities assemble within its substance, being born as the origin and ancestor of all. As we can see, Void Termina isn't just the origin of dark matter, Void Termina is the origin of all matter, good or bad. Void doesn't just decide which one of those it wants to be, there's a bit more to it than that. Void Soul's description tells us that it may rise again in other forms depending on whether positive or negative energy is gathered. Now that we know the pink hearts are just part of the spears that were shattered, we know it's not referring to that, so what does it mean? Well, let's take a look at Phase 2's description in the ultimate choice. It states, hatred, obsession, jealousy, greed. The darkness gathered by Highness has transformed it into a corrupt power within Void Termina that conflicts with his newly forged soul. As we can see, it's not talking about physically gathering energy, it's talking about the negative or positive energy we may have emotionally. So Void Termina could have very well started off good. However, if Highness would let his emotions get the best of him, Void Termina would follow suit, causing a downward spiral, and it would make sense that they were sealed away. It is interesting though how Void works the same way as the ancient artifacts, able to give power for good or bad depending on the intentions of the wielder. That being said, how might a Void Termina turned out if he was given positive energy instead? We can see this by Void's reaction to Kirby's influence in his description. It says, the final battle at hand. Void takes his first steps toward a new age. In place of tyrannical rage will he find nap time, gentle breezes, treats, he may even dream again. A dream of friends reunited. That sounds very similar to Kirby himself. However, this isn't the only similarity we see in this game. After gaining the power from the sisters, who are still hanging inside its stomach, it's able to wield fire, electricity, and ice, along with the sword, spear, and axe of them as well. Sort of like a copy ability, if you will. After taking off its mask, it inhales you inside its stomach. Also, just like how dark matter was able to recreate the Rainbow Sword simply by its memories of it, Void Termina was also able to recreate weapons that might have defeated it a long time ago, like the bow and the Master Crown, along with the Rainbow Aura. And in order to defeat Void Termina, Kirby created memories of all his dream friends as well. And of course, as we all know, it makes the same face as Kirby. But when you defeat it in Soul Melter EX, it gives off one last smile before it dies, But that's not all. Those stars you see are the same shape and color as those used in friend abilities. Though, if Kirby is a good void and dark matter is a dark void, then where does that leave Gooey? Who knows, that's a different topic entirely. Getting back to these memories though, if we look at Void Termina carefully, whenever it uses one of these weapons, it immediately disappears again into nothingness. Now if we notice at the final scene, when Void jumps out of the body for the final time, the body also disappears into nothingness. Perhaps this body too was just a memory. I mean, Phase 2 of Void Termina does say that the true form of Void Termina has been revealed, so perhaps this body is simply an image of one of the 4 heroes of yore that took him down. Though it's a good thing Kirby was able to free Highness and the sisters before he disappeared. That would have been troublesome. However, even though they escaped, their story is far from over. As we can see in the latest update, following the events of Void Termina, Highness sinks into another dimension. Even worse, the Jamba Heart forms around him, trapping him inside, until Kirby eventually frees him. Though one may wonder just why Kirby was just so conveniently able to be here in the first place. Well, let's take a look at the description for Heroes in Another Dimension itself. The very first part says, Highness Prayer opened a path from another dimension to new dimensions untold. So this wording tells us that Highness gave this prayer while he was already in another dimension. While we may not know what this prayer consisted of, we can look at the Song of Supplication, or prayer song to God, that the Mage Sisters sung. That last verse is the most interesting. It says, in spite of all cold of ice, in spite of all hard as stone, in spite of all it would seem, in spite of all were but a dream, hear our plea, you must, please return our hearts to us. I'm just gonna say it right now, there's no guarantee that this is what it's referring to. However, considering the sisters had their life drained from them and turned into lifeless husks, and how Highness got trapped and corrupted by the Jamba Heart, perhaps Void Termina, after having the darkness removed from him, opened the way for Kirby to save them and get their hearts back. There's more evidence to support this if we look at the description for the 3 Mage Sisters. It tells us they're in another dimension to find their master, only to find him a shadow of his former self. And then it goes on further, can their one wish restore him to glory? They would love nothing more than to see Highness back to his former self again, because as Francisca states, this is not the Highness they once knew. Either way, in the end, their wish comes true. Highness and the Mage Sisters are restored back to normal and can finally live in peace again. And just in case there was any doubt, they just want you to know that they're happy. See you guys next time.